Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Mills, and I'm the Executive Director of Global Innovation Institute. I want to welcome you today to our webinar for February 2023. As most of you know, Global Innovation Institute is the world's leading professional certification, business accreditation, and membership organization in the field of innovation. We host monthly webinars, and we do that every month. And this month, we're going to have Mr. Adil Faisal. So I'd like to introduce Adil, and then we'll turn it over to Adil after that. So our guest is Mr. Adil Faisal, and Adil is the founder and product innovation lead of the venture studio 8126, based in Silver Spring, Maryland, in the United States. Adil is a product and product innovation / enterprise agile coach with a background in design thinking, software engineering, and solution architecture. Over the last 20 years, Adil has had the pleasure of serving social impact startups in the US and Asia, US federal and state agencies like the US Health and Human Services, US National Institutes of Health, US Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, US Department of Veteran Affairs, US Citizenship and Immigrant Services, and the Maryland State Highway Administration, as well as Fortune 100 business organizations like Microsoft and Cisco, amongst others. Adil has over 20 years of experience. He holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and a master's degree in computer networks from the University of Southern California. Adil also holds countless professional credentials, including TOGAF 9 certified, Professional Scrum Master 1, Certified Scrum Professional Product, Certified Scrum Professional Scrum Master, Certified Scrum Master, Certified Scrum Product Owner, Advanced Certified Scrum Master, Certified Safe 5 Program Consultant, IC Agile Certified Professional for Agile Team Facilitation, and IC Agile Certified Professional for Agile Coaching, which is a lot of credentials. So consequently, besides running 8126 Ventures, Adil is also an extremely well-seasoned product coach. In this capacity, he helps organizations to make impactful products and services by providing mentorship at the very early or early stage of the lean product innovation lifecycle, spanning the pre-seed, seed, and Series A stages of the venture. Adil loves working with leaders and cross-functional product teams on product and technology strategy so that they can make and measure what matters and grow together as a learning organization. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Adil, who will be talking to us today about Venture Studios, a new solution to a broken product innovation ecosystem. Please join me, if you will, in welcoming Mr. Adil Faisal. Adil, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and thank you for having us here. This is a great community to be connected with. I have been following you for a long time, and when we were talking last year, it was great to have this opportunity. So, by the way, sound check, can you guys hear me? Okay, all right. Because Anthony's screen froze, so it froze my heart too a little bit. So okay, without further ado, I'll start the presentation here. And thanks everyone for joining in today, and from wherever in the world you are joining. So it froze my heart too a little bit. So okay, without further ado, I'll start the presentation here. And thanks everyone for joining in today, and from wherever in the world you are joining. So it froze my heart too a little bit. So okay, without further ado, what was that? So Anthony, yeah, if you can please mute all of us, because I just listened to myself talking for repeating myself. So great. Just another quick check. Can you guys see my screen? Please put in yes in the chat. Anyone? Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. So today I'm going to share a little bit of a personal story on during COVID. at a spur, not a spur of the moment, for different triggers led me to that moment. I bootstrapped a venture studio. I've always been with startups, and from the moment back in 2000 when I got out of graduate school, that was the first startup boom and bust, internet startup boom and bust scenario there, back in the West Coast. So I was very much in there, and I've always been with startups, and I've started startups, and been part of acquisitions by big companies. But I have never thought I'd be starting a venture studio, which is a startup about startups, right? So this is that story. And again, thank you, Anthony, for giving me the platform to share that story with others. So I call it 8126 Ventures. The name is always intrigues people. So I promise to shed a little bit more light at the end, at the very end. So you have to stick to the end. Let's get started. So today I'm going to one of my major triggers for creating this venture studio is when I was interacting with my kids during COVID lockdown. COVID changed all our lives for better and for worse. But the biggest lesson I personally got, I'm sure many will share my feeling, is that it gave us all time to reflect, time to slow down a little bit, step back and reflect, right? In our product teams, we always do a retrospective, right? You work for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and then you stop and retro, right? But in our lives, we do not have that usually luxury to really stop and think and reflect. So COVID gave the whole world that chance, right? So I was no exception. And when I was interacting with my kids and looking at their future, thinking about where their lives are going with all this digital influx, digital tsunami, that gave me a moment of reflection, and that started this whole journey. So today I'm going to split it in two parts. One is, the first would be a primer on Venture Studio, right? And the second part, I'd go a little bit deeper on what exactly what we are doing at 8126 Ventures. Sounds good? Got it. All right. So Venture Studio, let me engage with the student a little bit. How many of you have a very clear picture of what a venture studio is? Just say yes or no. Do we have a crystal clear idea of what a venture studio does? Yes, yes. And you can say no too. Okay, I at least got one no, so I'm going for it. Okay, so Venture Studio is, this is what ChatGPT had to say about Venture Studio. We are going to share this deck with everyone, nothing proprietary about the deck. So I'm not inviting you to read this whole up, but basically Venture Studio is like incubator or accelerator in the same category that it facilitates startups. The only major difference is that incubators and accelerators typically provide the investment part of it, and the talent and the execution of it is left largely to the company or the startup itself. They of course provide mentorship and very light touch guidance, but they don't get in the thick of things. Whereas Venture Studio is quite the opposite. It actually has a lot of skin in the game. It in most cases, the Venture Studio has their own focus, as you will see for our Venture Studio as well. We have our own bias, so to speak, right? Or focus, and then we facilitate the ideation ourselves, the R&Ds ourselves, in-house, of course, in collaboration with subject matter experts, etc. But venture studios basically handholds the startup, or conceives the startup and takes it down from ideation to problem solution fit to product market fit, all the way to an extent, and that is at the discretion of the venture studio. When will it let the startup stand on its own feet, or will it always be in the game? That's at the discretion of the venture studio, and how the startup evolves, right? So there are different types of venture studios, of course. One is the first type, the vertical kind, is we are focused on certain areas. Like for ourselves, 8126, we are focusing on future of work, wealth, and wellness, right? For communities, and some may be interested in healthcare, education, and so on. And horizontal venture studios are more, you can say, at the platform level, marketplace, or in many cases they can be even like if you think about network layer, the platform level venture studios, right? And then there are corporate venture studios which are spawned by enterprises, big enterprises. They are getting into the game. I'm sure many of you have already read Innovator's Dilemma by Christensen, and one of the things he says is that it's actually he proves that the larger the corporates get, they get very good at sustained innovation, but disruptive innovation they get bad if they try to do within the corporate structure. The corporate structure just does not allow disruptive innovation to happen in-house. That's why many corporate ventures, corporates now took that lesson, and they're spinning off venture studios. Not many, but some. That trend has started, and it's an exciting trend. So number 3 is a hybrid, which combine these approaches. And the number 5 is studio as a service, right? Studio as a service means that the venture studio, as you can imagine, if as a venture studio we are spinning off like n number of startups a year, we have kind of, for survival, they develop streamlined processes for handling all the back office stuff, so if you compare startup to startup, probably 80% of the stuff is common, right? The innovation happens in the 10-20%. So venture studios can then offer those back office stuff, those processes out as a service to others. Any questions so far? I'll take a breather. All right. So moving on. So where does venture studio usually play their game, right? So in the product innovation lifecycle, right, from ideation to say you succeed in the marketplace. It primarily goes through 3 stages, right? The first stage is the problem solution fit. Is this the right problem to solve, and is this the right solution that I'm thinking of, right? That's the step number 1, right? And then after problem solution fit comes the product market fit, right? Okay, we have a solution that is showing promise. Now when you go to the market, you naturally see there's so many market segments open up, right? For example, We have one of our promising products is called Careerverse, which is providing career guidance as a service. And their target, we can target high schoolers, we can target college students, we can target veterans, we can target so many market spaces, right? Upskilling professionals. So product market fit is number one, to figure out what is your beachhead, right? Which market you will first target, and then that there's a natural pull from the market for your product, right? That is to me personally, that is the most exciting part of the whole startup journey. Personally, I'm saying, because that's when you really feel like, okay, I am bringing in something that people will really help people, and there's a promise for the future of that product. So that's number two. And number three is the business model fit, right? Business model fit is when okay, you have got product market fit. Now you have to accelerate like crazy, right? You pour in resources and go big. So step one is like your pre-seed ideation, bootstrapping, pre-seed, seed level, right? Product market fit is like seed, series A, that kind of level, right? And beyond that, series N is your business model fit. So typically venture studios that I have I have knowledge of, we always focus on the number one, to some extent number two. Number three is usually when the venture studios get out of the picture, right? They probably have some equity, but they get out of the picture. So this basically shows the same thing we already covered. So venture studios basically start from the very beginning and go up to this hockey stick. Now, of course, the myth is like 9 out of 10 startups fail, right? So this hockey stick may not materialize in many places. That's actually, we'll see, that's one of the advantages of venture studio as well, that because it's in-house at this step, at the early stages, we can iterate very quickly and very cheaply than traditional incubator approach, so that we can get the cost of that very early stage innovation way down. I've been experimenting on this for the last 2.5, 3 years. So I have some data. I'm trying to right now working on some data mining. So I'll publish my findings soon. I'll definitely keep the community posted on that. So any questions so far? I'll just stop a little bit here. Yeah, okay. Moving on. And please feel free to, I love interaction, so please feel free to pop up any questions here, and I may not know the answer, but we'll get to it. All right. So moving on, this is a extremely it is a very good article in Harvard Review on how the venture studio works and how it is. As we'll see, there are waves that come, that venture studios get popular and then kind of comes into the limelight, then takes a step back. So this was about the innards of how venture studio works. We have kind of covered it. So venture studio takes an idea, right, and builds on the MVP, test with the customer at the early stages. And once you have the product market fit, what happens is at one point, right, for the successful products, they grow big enough that your internal capacity of the venture studio is exceeded. So there at that point, with right kind of equity structure, there are entrepreneurs who love to actually work with venture studio products, because at that point their risk is gone. They love the entrepreneurial journey, but their risk is not gone, to mitigate it to a large extent, right? So the venture studio usually have a network of people who joins and takes the company forward from Series A onward, typically, right? I think of this as a relay race, right? The relay race is the exact metaphor. So venture studio takes the baton from, say, station A to station 2 to station 3 probably, and from there on some other people take the baton and runs with it. And this is another thing I really like to point out here. To me, I think that's more realistic and an expectation on entrepreneurs, right? I am an entrepreneur myself, and the myth out there is that, oh, this entrepreneur is this superstar, kind of the Elon Musk, the Bill Gates, the Mark Zuckerberg kind of, Steve Jobs kind of guy that will start in a garage, take the company from $1 to zillion, right? That happens, as we have seen, that happens, but that's, in my mind, possibly one of the reasons that we also, on the other hand, we say 9 out of 10 startups fail, because that cannot be a norm. That's an exception, right? Whereas in venture studio, kind of the environment is set to work to the strength of the individual. So if someone is really good at say at the very early stage of the life cycle, like ideation to pre-seed, like MVP, and getting the first customer, the problem solution fit, they can continue to just work in that stage in a venture studio and be very good at it, at their game, right? So it's basically a relay race of subject matter experts. So that to me seems a more realistic model. That's why I'm so excited about embracing that. So any comments or reflections there? Okay, I'll move on. So history of venture studio, right? This is actually coincidentally the Idea Lab is from what I know, Bill Gross started it in Los Angeles and the Los Angeles area. And they pioneered this venture studio model, as far as I know. There's a fascinating talk by Bill here in TED, where he basically data mined all the successful and unsuccessful venture products, startups they had, and on the single biggest reason why startups succeed or fail, right? So after that, as I was mentioning, there are waves back in 2007, 2013, 2018, where there's quite a few venture studios get created. But to me, I always go back to kind of Idea Lab. Actually, I was in Los Angeles area when Idea Lab was there, and they had quite an impact. I didn't have a chance to get associated with them back then, but I've learned a lot from them. So one of the biggest things I learned from this guy actually is that ideas are precious, but ideas will not go anywhere if you hold on to them, right? We should not be afraid of of sharing ideas, that if someone steals the idea, we should not hold back on our ideas in fear that people will steal steal it, right? Because anyone who have been in startup world, they know that the execution, there's so many things have to align, right? And ideas attract like-minded people, right? And that's one of the biggest lessons I also learned in my journey. We'll see. How are we doing on time? Let's see. We're almost halfway through. That's great. I'm almost done with part one, or primer here. So just one of the key aspects of Venture Studio is that we already have kind of covered it quite a bit. That as we internally, Venture Studios have processes or stage gates, right? But that we have to maintain as the startup or an idea is progressing through the different stages, right? From idea to MVP to etc. So the success of this Venture Studio hinges on how rigorously you are keeping track of exactly where you are, being very honest about having no delusion about these numbers, where things are, and at each of these stage gates, looking back and taking the right decision, right? That's how you the Venture Studio can keep track of multiple startups. And then another key aspect is you have to have a very rigorous vetting process, right? Because ideas, as I said, is precious, but it's cheap in a way that you can come up with ideas very quickly, right? Uber for X, Uber for Y, right? I'm sure those who run incubators, they come up. I did a masterclass couple of months back on for an incubator. They received 2,200 applicants and chose, I think, less than 10 out of them, right? So ideas are pretty cheap. So we need a pretty solid vetting process, right? To internally to kind of weed out our own ideas. So I'll just mention two that are very close to my heart in this vetting process. And one is if it's a vitamin or a painkiller, right? If it's something that you have to have, like painkiller when your head you have a splitting headache, versus a vitamin when it's nice to have, but if you don't, then you may live to have it another day, right? So that's one key aspect that we use in our own selection. Another is, of course, impact, like how many people, market size. That's a given. The other one, I think I came across that in one of the Y Combinators, the startup school, is that how frequently is that problem being experienced by your potential customer, right? Is it a once a year thing, or is it a weekly thing, or is it a daily problem, right? So as you can see, based on those, you can actually assign numbers to each of these vetting criteria, right? And then come up with a kind of a in-house index of your own that will help you kind of prioritize ideas, right? So so I'll wrap this section up by some advantages I have already mentioned for Venture Studio, that I think Venture Studio model allows you to kind of have play the long game, right? You can internalize what you want to focus on and what you want to move the needle on, and then keep working at it, right? And then because they're like the early stage innovation is very chaotic, and traditional approach is a way more wasteful than a venture studio model, because we can amortize resources among resources, talents, etc., among multiple startups, right? And then there is a network effect, right? If you have a close like intimate ecosystem of startups working with each other, not against each other, then that creates a fantastic network effect. And yeah, and the another major difference, of course, with that I'll end this section, is that because of all this, venture studio naturally takes a lot of percentage of the startup. So this is not for the greedy that we cannot be greedy when we are doing venture studio, right? And all the incentives have to be there when you are boarding on very highly talented people, subject matter experts, and with equity. And so venture studio doesn't always keep all this equity as well. They are trying to share it with people who are contributing to the early stage process. Excuse me. So that's the major. That's the funding part, right? Venture studio takes 30 to 80%. Some of our initiatives, we actually own 100% of it. That's also because we are bootstrapping it at this point, but it'll soon go down from there. So that's that. And three future trends that I'm seeing. How are we doing on time? We're doing good. So I'll just share it, conclude this part one with three future trends that I'm seeing, and it'll be great. It'll be very exciting to ride that wave. Is that venture studio and traditional accelerator incubators are currently like disjointed entities. They don't collaborate quite as much with each other. But since I've started on venture studio, I'm seeing very nice opportunities where there are actually we can collaborate with each other. I have already started conversations with some very like top-notch social enterprise incubators in Asia, and there's some very interesting premises there. We'll be sharing more if something solidifies, or when something solidifies, God willing. And number two is like enterprise and angels may rethink their strategy of investing in early stage startups. That I am an angel investor as well, and I think we are the only kind of angels who ask for money, right? So ask for a return, and we get very antsy on as angels, right? When startups like show signs of faltering, right? Well, but we can spread this risk, right, a lot if you are instead investing in a venture studio. There's of course a plug in it, right? So I have a venture studio, and we're looking for investments, but but it's just math that if some venture studio aligns with the purpose of the enterprise, purpose of your investment thesis, then it may be a good idea to think about, are they taking investments, right? It spreads across the portfolio. And then number three is entrepreneurs themselves. We would be targeting very soon this year, God willing, on top of the funnel entrepreneurs, the 2,200 people that I say that they applied to this incubator, and then 7 people got selected. It's impossible for incubators, as any incubator, to figure out if there's some diamonds that or gems that we missed, right, in that 2,200. And the entrepreneurs go through so much wasted effort, right? talking to 100 VCs is a norm, right? That's taken as a norm. So instead, entrepreneurs can de-risk a lot of their effort if, to kind of play with the venture studios or collaborate with venture studios and leverage on their learnings. And so with that, I'm concluding the part one. Part two will be more personalized journey, but we're taking a breather. Oh, I got a chat. Anthony, can you say something? I just want to make sure that I'm being heard.
Yeah, we're hearing you fine.
All right. Okay. So it says, sorry, Adil, I had, I don't know when it was said, as I understood, if someone has idea, venture studios support them until first MVP. Is venture studio funding initial expenses or whoever as idea need to invest? So typically the venture studios have their own thesis, and it's like a pool system. Like when we are, say, working on a project and a product, and we need to augment our idea. We need to actually validate our idea very early on. We reach out to people that would facilitate that conversation, right? Whereas what you just said is more like a traditional incubator model, right? That someone has idea, venture studios support them until first MVP. This is more like the early stage incubators. Traditional incubators work that way, right? That's the example I gave, right? The 2,200 people apply, 7 gets selected. But with that, actually, I would tap in a little bit. As a top of the funnel entrepreneurs, would it be beneficial to have some sort of a self-service what is it called, some sort of venture studio like process where you can take your idea yourself, right? To an extent. We'll touch on it later. I'm kind of getting distracted here. So, all right, Nilesh, I'll please feel free to reach out to me over LinkedIn and we can go. There's another question. Is there a network of venture studios? There are a couple of sites with startup studios. Network of venture studios. I am actually new to the game. I have not connected to any network of venture studios yet, but yeah, I'll stop at that. But I see there's a link. I'd definitely look up. And startup studio and venture studio is synonymous. So if they say startup studio, this most likely is a venture studio. So going on to part 2, and we have time check 20 minutes. So I'd go through very quickly in about probably 10 minutes, and then last 10 minutes we do Q&A. Does that sound good, Anthony?
Yes, it does. And we have some questions over on the LinkedIn live side too, but let's have you go through part 2 and then I'll share those questions with you.
Okay, I'll be quick. And hopefully this is not the last conversation. So I'd save some, no problem. So trigger. So as I said, my first trigger was my sons during COVID, and I was stumbling on so many. How can we keep them safe in online? How do we like do their homeschooling, etc., right? And every time I look for some products that are out there that doesn't fit my need, etc. So I just keep adding to a list. I kept a list of products that I'd love to see, right? So that list kept growing, and then there was another trigger. This is fantastic, a trigger actually. I was consulting a government agency, and by contract, we were supposed to provide like second, sub-second, less than 1 second response time throughout the world to reach that agency's site, right? And for that, we set out, we pinged machines across the world, around the world, in less than a second, right? We pinged them and we knew their health. At the same time, I was consulting this nonprofit who sponsors like 1,500 kids, and there was no ping mechanism for us to know how is the kid doing now. Like, I've been sponsoring it for 3 years, right? What the people will get like occasional drawing from the kid. So we were I didn't find any to date. I have not found any good answer to that, right? And then there are other triggers as well. So the list of apps that I kept, it kept getting longer, right? But then COVID gave us that, I say, time for reflection. So I asked myself that I will go to my grave with this list, right? And I know that my sons and their generation, they need so many things, and these are not technologically, we are not talking about SpaceX type innovation, right? This is much more reachable goals, right? Those simple apps here and there that will give so much value to communities out there struggling. But hey, we have like $240 million to sink on something like Bored Apes, right? Actually, 400 something million. I forgot how much, but you know how the VC world works. So who will make it for us, right? And that led me to the question to answer, like, who is us, right? So I'm talking about real world communities, right? We associate with people with common beliefs, values, and interests, right? And these communities, I see a white space there for innovation that are not SpaceX, that may be groundbreaking and disruptive, but that are, I'm talking about product innovations that are very, very easily achievable, right? So that triggered me that, hey, I mean, I know enough people to kind of bring together and try to just make small products for ourselves, right? One interesting example is, concrete example is, I was surprised to know that only 9% of plastics get recycled, right? You have so much advertising going on about recycling, etc., right? Only 9% gets recycled, right? So how about making a software? And this I have not worked on this product yet. So see, I'm sharing ideas. So if you guys want to work on it, more than welcome. If you want to collaborate us, more than welcome. Let's see that we can empower communities to move that needle locally, right? Say Maryland, Wisconsin, Saudi Arabia, wherever it is, right? Locally, we can move the needle, and we can facilitate that with some products that will make it easier, right? So all it needs is some setting some goals and some diligent effort, right? So that's what triggered me to create this venture, 8126 Ventures, to empower real communities to pursue common goals and collaborate on common good to achieve common grounds to achieve common good. There's a lot of common, so I call it our 3 C's. So this is our why. We want to achieve common good. We want communities to work together on common ground. That's how we do it. And what we do is we work toward common goals, like achievable goals, SMART goals, right? The SMART, SMART goals. So I'll conclude with one example that actually after that I have to share my portfolio, but conclude with one example is that we want our products to help communities set their goals on some, we focus on future of work, wealth, and well-being. So, but using our products and services, the communities should be like, what's the difference between A and B, right? This was given to me by a kind of a mentor who was acquiring our company from Microsoft. Microsoft was acquiring us, and this guy came and he was giving the speech, and he gave this example, right? That when you look at a traffic jam, everyone is busy, everyone is going somewhere, right? But but they don't have a common goal. They're just a lot of busy work going on, right? At the same time, when you look at a beehive, it looks similarly chaotic, but now we know that bees are like, have very strategically, they are moving very strategically. Some are gathering honey, some are protecting the hive, etc., right? So we want our products to actually take communities from the left side to the right side, right? And help move the needle, right? So that's that. And I'll just share a little bit of our results. So these are, see, I when I bootstrapped it, I basically most of these are actually me and our development partner and a group of very dedicated subject matter experts. So we one of our products, Caravan Funds, that is live now, and I'm glad to say that it's a crowdfunding portal for real estate ventures. And we have some customers, real customers signed in on board. So we're very excited with that. Another one, Yumna, we're launching this year. This is open source kind of a WordPress. You can think of WordPress for communities. So communities can start working on, say, that recycle example I gave, working on that kind of project, collaborate on that. And Careerverse I mentioned. So one lesson, let's conclude with my lesson. 1 minute. That you cannot do it alone, right? You need and people, if you give them the why, Simon Sinek, right? Start with why. Give them the why. That was my biggest mental barrier, that how would I find like-minded people. And once you share the why with them and it resonates with them, they just start working with you. That is my biggest take, and it's it's God's blessing that they think that way. So that's number one. Number two is talk to your customer, right? So this is another biggest lesson we actually try to identify a single or two handful of customers from day one, from the ideation day, right? And that's Careerverse. We have been collaborating with our potential customer for a year, right? They helped us design our product and they are trying to market it now, right? So that I found was really, really valuable. And of course, there's no place for ego. Be very honest and just be curious. So with that, I'll stop and open up for questions.
Thank you, Adil. You know, there's a number of questions that are coming off the LinkedIn side. So I'm going to read some of those to you, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. So a lot of it has to do with the mechanics of the venture studio. So one gentleman, I believe he had to leave for another meeting, but his name is Orfeo. He was wondering, like, do venture studios do they struggle with being able to retain or afford the senior venture builders that are going to be necessary to take these ventures and then really scale them up and validate them? Is that a struggle?
I'd be very honest. As I said, I find out very soon personally. From what I have heard or learned from Bill Gross and others, is that as long as the incentive structure is there, right? As long as people or the venture studio itself is not trying to be greedy, right? And as long as you share the why, right? People stick around.
Okay.
People will stick around. It's just yeah.
And you know, this formula of, you know, we talk about startups a lot of times, they need a like a hipster, a hacker, and a hustler, right? You know,
Yes.
the
Yes.
developer, the sales guy, and all that. You know, they need that holy trinity, so to speak. And it's almost like you need it on the pre-launch side when you're first doing your MVP, and then when you're ready to really hand this off to entrepreneurs, they almost need another set of hacker, hustler, hipster. Would you agree?
Exactly. I agree with that. And I think that's one of the strengths of venture studio, right? It's the relay race model, right? The hipster, hustler, that trio, the trio that works well at the ideation phase, ideation MVP phase, may not be the same trio that performs well when you have a product market fit, right?
Mhm.
So in the venture studio, you can the specialists specialist is a bad term sometimes, but you know what I mean. That the subject matter experts can focus on their sweet spot basically and keep working on it, right?
But of course, that means you have to find these right teams for each
Absolutely,
stage.
that's number one, right? You
Yeah.
cannot do it alone.
Right,
Absolutely,
absolutely.
yeah.
Now, you
Yeah.
mentioned in one of your slides a list of advantages of venture studios. How about disadvantages? Are there any disadvantages to venture studios?
The disadvantage to me, as I said, I am new to the game, right? I am not someone like Bill Gross who have 100 ventures under my belt yet. But disadvantage is only if you consider how you define failure, right? If you are having a 2x return, most or 5x return, most VCs will consider that as a failure. But for venture studio, because we have so much stake in the game, I mean, to me, it's like it's a matter of perspective, I think. So disadvantage, I'm sure. Well, yeah, I know better, I'm sure, as we go on to our next phase of the journey. Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about the business model of a venture studio, particularly in terms of the cash flow. I mean, you're investing in developing products, and yes, you have equity, but you know, when you bring on a team to really scale that, are they working purely for some equity, or is there some salaries going on? And
It's a mixture. So I'm bootstrapping, right? Right now, I'm bootstrapping with literally my own money. I own 100% of the venture studio.
Mhm.
So, but when I brought in the development partners that I have, they go 50-50 now. I mean, there's a mixture of some money and some safe. My development partner was even happy to just work with safe, as I said, because the why is aligned, right? And of course, the major revenue model. My next stage, I was waiting, right? I was waiting for us to have some success stories, right? Take some products out across the finish line. Now that we have one across the finish line and another two close behind. And another source of revenue, it's not revenue. Another source of funding would be reaching out to enterprises and even government agencies who are mission driven, right? And who can have a long what is it called, long term look on the investment. Then we do that, and right on cue, we actually innovated a little bit on the funding criteria as well. So we have actually, I am not 100% there to reveal it, but we have one mechanism where we would preserve the that kind of funding that is coming from hopefully coming from agencies or government agencies or enterprises, preserve the principle, and we can run the studio only from the proceeds, and they even the funders will get some ROI back from very early on. So de-risk their investment that way to some extent.
And is your ultimate return on the investment an exit where you basically liquidate your equity in these startups, or is it?
That's one.
Yeah.
That's one way. The most ideal outcome is something that we don't need to take any VC money, but it just goes on revenue, right? And it stands on its own as a company, with revenue, without any.
So you just remain your status as a stockholder, and then
As some stockholder, of course.
Right.
That's why from our perspective, we are going to apply for being a B Corp, employee-owned B Corp. So I really believe in sharing the equity with the people who literally will spend their blood, sweat, tears, etc.
So we have a couple minutes left. I would invite the audience to, if you have any more questions, feel free to type them into the chat screen here and let us know if you have any more questions for Adil. And while we're waiting for that, I mean, Adil, I think I really admire what you're doing, particularly your focus on, the future of work and wealth and health, and with social impact. It's you're not just in it to make pure profit. You're actually trying to have a social impact. So I do admire that a lot.
And it's a team effort. So I'm sure this is our paths will cross many times.
Yes, and the echoed here that your work is very inspiring. And
thank you. Actually, I forgot our name. I promised that I'll shed a little bit light on the name. So this is also I say this was done during COVID, right? So you spiritually get connected a little bit more during crisis times, right? So when all these things are happening, I was thinking of how do I bootstrap a venture studio. I can think of bootstrapping a small startup. How do I do that? So I am a Muslim, so I read our holy book is Quran. And there the in chapter 81 verse 26, God is asking mankind, and it's not just asking the Muslims, it's asking mankind, so where are you going, right? And said, hey, I can I saw 1776 as a name, so why don't I just take 8126 as our name, and that will give us a strategic drive, and it'll make it front and center. So there you go. Now you know the name's history.
Well, bravo, Adil. I really appreciate that. I don't see any further questions, and I think we're at the top of the hour. So any last final comments, Adil, before we wrap it up?
No, this was fantastic, and I'd love to engage with the team. Let me share my screen, my LinkedIn. I'll be sharing the LinkedIn and the presentation.
Yes, and as you know, this is being recorded, so afterwards, in a couple of days, we'll share with you the link to download the recording with all the chat information, and I believe Adil will share his presentation with us as well. So, and for any of your friends who weren't able to join us, then you can share that with them as well. So with that, Adil, I want to thank you again so much for being our guest today. You've been very enlightening to share.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, about your venture studio and about venture studios in general. It was an honor to have you. And so with that, I will say goodbye to everyone and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.